This is Jamie. I'm here with my co-hosts Dean and Jerry. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hello.
You guys doing well? Had a good week?
Yeah.
Good. I like the enthusiasm.
Yeah, I know. It's uneventful. Blessedly uneventful.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. Anyway, hey, we had a good week as a show. Like Monday, we did 21,000 listeners on Monday alone. That's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, wow. Was it on one specific show, or?
No, I don't think it was. I think it was, we have 800 shows, so I think it was no telling where those numbers were spread. But anyway, we feel very blessed that we still have the loyalty and the listenership of so many out there that share our passion for movies. Mm-hmm. And so, guys, let's do it again this week. Share our passion with the people out there. Come on.
Share it, please.
And we have a perfect guest on our panel tonight to help us do just that. And one of our best friends, one of the best friends the show's ever had, Tony Macklin, our good buddy, film critic. You can read his film criticism on his website, tonymacklin.net, and I highly urge everyone out there to do so if you haven't already. And here's the man himself, Mr. Tony Macklin. Hey, Tony.
Hi, Jamie. Question. You said this was going to be a terrific episode. Please define for me terrific.
Maybe just terrifying.
Maybe terrifically terrifying. There you go.
So, first of all, the big news this past week were the premieres at Sundance. So I just wanted to, they announced the winners earlier today because they give out the prizes at the end of the festival each year. The Audience Award and the Grand Jury Prize went to Birth of a Nation, the Nate Parker film about the 1831 slave revolt. Half of the critics are saying that this is an astounding movie. The other half are saying it's all right. It's kind of a knee-jerk praise that a lot of people are sensing from this movie, just because.
Jamie, what is so ironic is this is a story of Nat Turner, and in 1967, William Styron wrote the book, The Confessions of Nat Turner, which won a Pulitzer Prize. And there was the same kind of reaction. First, there was a very, very favorable reaction to this Southern white writer writing about a black slave. And then there was a really strong reaction, scalding it, called 10 Black Experts Respond. And then it fell into lack of praise for a long period. And Styron went into a bitter seclusion. And then it came back because Gates and Cornel West liked it and said that Spike Lee should make a picture out of it. And so we're almost in the same situation with a film that relates way back into 67.
Sure. And also, I mean, what a moment for it to appear on the scene as well, because these are the past 2 weeks we've been embroiled in the diversity and film conversation, and this plays right into that narrative as well. So it's certainly prescient.
Right. Yeah, to the point where they're already predicting it's the front runner for the best picture after next year.
Yeah, I mean, oh God, there's so much to talk about with that issue and the ramifications or the fallout from their decisions. Their new guidelines for the Academy. I mean, there's already been fallout from that with their voting members and everything, and lifelong members who are going to have. Well, some of them, I'm sure you've read, have written bitter letters to the Academy. Yeah. It's like anything else. There's a good and a bad, and we're seeing these. Yeah, I saw that, Dean, where they were predicting that this would be the front runner. I mean, is it? I mean, I know it's
that's like predicting who will win the Super Bowl this year or next year.
Yeah, I mean,
it's true.
Now, I want to go back. Tony brought up a good point. So Spike Lee was at one time going to make this into a movie, or
not this exact film, but a film about Nat Turner. And what happened was they couldn't raise money for it, even though Cornel West and Henry Gates, both black historians and experts, said that they should make, that he might make the film, that he would be a good choice, and he considered it, but the money wasn't there, and it never came to be.
That would have been fascinating, though. I mean, you can just think of all like Spike Lee's like the camera tricks and everything, all his like the people, his crew and everything, what they could do with that kind of story. That would have been a fascinating film to watch.
Mm-hmm. However, it wasn't in rhyming verse like that.
I wonder if he'll do every movie like that from now on. That'll be great.
I would enjoy that. I love that part of Chirac.
Quite cathartic. I found that quite cathartic the way that was done. I really did.
It was really entertaining.
Okay, Sunday. There's always a trend. Usually, when you look at Sundance films, there's usually an overriding trend in the film. So you can tell in the independent realm what occupied filmmakers that year leading up to that festival. There are two movies about a woman, Christine, I don't have her last name. She was the first person to shoot and kill herself on air. She was an anchor in Sarasota, Florida, my neck of the woods. And in the early 70s, she killed herself during one of her news broadcasts. There are two movies about her. One is a straightforward narrative that Rebecca Hall stars in, and they say she's great in it. The other is an experimental documentary-type film, kind of a hybrid movie. There's a documentary about Newtown. There's a film that is a not-so-thinly-veiled recreation of the Aurora movie theater shooting.
Oh, God.
So I think that it's safe to say that the independent world is ready to kind of grapple with this ongoing gun epidemic that we have, this ongoing dialogue, which is refreshing.
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, the independent world is, I feel, is always ready to embrace, well, to put it mildly, the most horrible aspects of
because they have
life,
nothing to lose. They have nothing to lose. They're not really, in a sense, I mean, yes, they're obviously, if they can get the backing, you know, sometimes, but there are people who are willing to, you know, like a Megan Ellison or something, but even absent of that, there's a hunger there, and they can get it out quicker too. Whereas with a major studio film, it gets turnaround, delays, everything. And with the exception of television, independent film is the only world I know where you can get something that's topical like this out, especially about guns. I mean, where it feels like you're still where the fire's hot there.
But my suspicion or doubt is, Jamie used the word dialogue. I don't think there is a dialogue. I mean, if this country and people in it didn't absolutely act out of shock after Sandy Hook, and both sides are kind of static, you could have films. I suppose there could be a film that would move the audience, but I just wonder whether it's possible, whether it's a plausible concept to have this reach the mainstream audience and have that audience moved by gun violence, because it just seems like that's not going to happen.
Well, it feels like we've kind of accepted it as a part of the landscape.
Right.
And
Sandy Hook is Newtown, right? That is the same.
Right.
The same. Okay. Yes. If you have.
I hope so.
I know. What I'm saying is, because we brought this up amongst friends and everything in conversation. If the nation was not moved or moved to action by the slaughter of children, I don't know then what the breaking point is. If it's not children, I have no idea.
I agree, but the alternative, I mean, what's the alternative? The artist's role is partly to inspire a dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we can feel completely helpless about it and throw up our hands, but that's not really what an artist has to do.
I agree.
Can you inspire dialogue? Or, the point that we were just making, if human beings weren't absolutely appalled and compelled to act when that happened, what's going to change? What if that couldn't move them? Is a movie going to transcend that and somehow have an effect
I agree. I don't think that that's going to happen. I don't think that a movie. Well, I think that violence in movies is just too entertaining for people. I even if it's violence towards kids and everything. I think people eat it up.
Yeah, but that's a good point. But there's another problem here where we're talking about how this goes actually back into the idea of distribution, because you're going on a release. A lot of these films that we're talking about that are going to come out are going to come out on a very limited release, if at all.
Yeah, they're not going to be. They're not going to be culture shakers.
They're not. It's impossible. It's amazing that we can even have water cooler conversations about TV today, but movies, unless it is a big blockbuster, or unless it is a movie that was in limited release that gets a lot of Oscar nominations and put in wide release, it's very hard. You couldn't have. We had a movie a couple years ago. We need to talk about Kevin. That should have been like a water cooler kind of movie, but it never was a wide release. So it's one of those things where you have the movie that deals with not so much gun violence as others, but the violence epidemic in this country. You had a movie there, but the way that we watch movies today is so different that it's kind of impossible to have that cultural conversation, that cultural dialogue.
But with Kevin, we need to talk about Kevin. In that film, the problem is kind of framed as kind of a horror movie construct, where it's an unexplainable evil there.
But bottom line is nobody saw it.
Yeah,
how do you have a dialogue with
nobody saw it? Right.
Yeah.
No movie. Very few movies nowadays can create the kind of seismic change that we're talking about. I just don't think that it's. I think we're too distracted. And as far as like Newtown goes, you have people denying that it even happened. The false flag idiots. Geez, that would be an interesting movie right there to follow those people that are always trying to say that everything's a conspiracy to take our guns away. I just don't think.
I do think that we're more fragmented than venomous than ever before. But I think there are enough sensible and sensitive people out there that. We artists need to keep appealing to spread stories like this. Art makes a difference, and
it does.
It sounds like everything you guys are saying is that it doesn't.
But Jamie, look at what the films of 2015 are. My top 4 did not have one death on the screen, but I am probably a dinosaur. I had Spotlight, Carol, Creed, and Brooklyn, but I feel like movies are in a tremendous change, that action is taking over, and as we well know, that movies are made not out of dialogue or out of character, but they're made for a universal audience, so there doesn't have to be. In fact, dialogue gets in the way. And in 2016, what is the nature of film? Action films are getting more popular. I think Mad Max was a phenomenal success because of the style, not the substance, but because of the style. When style takes over, you don't have much time for or much place for dialogue.
I think Tony's right. That is, we have a problem that's been going on in this country for a while. It really starts with what is the one complaint you hear about foreign films? Why people don't watch foreign films in this country?
Right, they don't want to read.
They don't want to read. Right there, you already are dealing with a deficit. It might seem like a big deficit at first, but it is. Look, I like a lot of these action films.
Eventually, you're going to get to the point where people don't want to have I think we're getting to the point, like Tony says, where people don't want to have dialogue because they don't want to think.
No, that's not it. That's not it. They believe their own people, and they don't care about the other side. They're indifferent or actually hate the other side. So how do you have dialogue between two forces that are so unable to... they can't even do it in a government. So where does that dialogue come from? I can sit.
Well,
with
I
you
was
guys
really speaking to what you were talking about in terms of how dialogue gets in the way of dialogue in movies gets in the way. For people, and I think that is relatable to the idea that people don't want to watch foreign films because they don't want to read.
Yeah,
I do think that the more dialogue-driven movies are kind of people stay away from them because they don't want. Action is safe, there's a good guy, there's a bad guy, blah blah blah. That's it. That's all I want. That's what the moviegoer is saying.
Well,
that's all I want.
The other day out here in Las Vegas, a woman who's a very good journalist was interviewing a director of a Shakespeare play, and he said, "Oh, we're speeding it up for the young so that it goes fast, 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 fast." So,
right,
the soliloquy.
That's going to help.
Yeah, right.
But that's a good.
The soliloquy, faster soliloquy, faster.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's what is George Lucas directing that? So it's harder, more intense. But I agree with what Tony's saying. Tony brings up a very good point. It's not even. I don't know if action. I think spectacle is the word we're looking. Not so much action. People want spectacle, and whether it's they just want. They don't. I mean, and I think the less said, the better. Unfortunately, because people really seems like people have a hard time processing dialogue too. I mean, I really.
But doesn't spectacle go foot and mouth with action?
Oh yeah. But I mean, I'm not just talking about. I mean, I know what you're saying, but we like to. It basically come to the point where the movies that we like, the smaller movies, and some that you mentioned, Brooklyn especially, seem to be almost like the movie itself premiering in the theater, the art house theater, is really just almost like a sneak preview for the Blu-ray at this point. Yeah, I mean, the bigger movies, the ones that their shareholders, I guess, is the best way that there are tons of shareholders and stock prices are responsible for. And don't get me wrong, there was a time when those movies, I always thought the ideal world was the big movies. The money made from they would say, hey, all right, we can make these smaller movies. That world no longer exists. I don't even know if it really ever existed in the way.
It's the trickle down economics thought of filmmaking. You're applying that to filmmaking. It should work, but there's still movies. There's still movies being made, like the four that Tony just mentioned, which a lot of those are in my top four as well, with Brooklyn and Carol. And it does feel like a little miracle when that happens, when those movies break.
Do you ever notice how many companies are responsible for putting up the money? There are like 4 or 5 companies' names you usually see, production companies you see on these smaller films. The amount of people, and when you go see something like Star Wars, it's Disney. Disney is the one, or Disney is usually. Or a Disney or a Universal for these big movies, you only have the one company, really, the studio, putting out. But for these little movies that they do get made, and thank God they get made, but you usually have 4 or 5 different entities putting up the money.
And then for foreign films, it's like endless.
Oh, God.
I mean, like,
When you got Film 4, you got, I can go on and on with the amount of companies that go on before those. I mean,
yeah.
All right. I also wanted to mention that the grand prize winner of the documentary at Sundance was Wiener, which, for those of you that aren't aware, it does sound like a provocative title if you don't know what it's in reference to. It's about Anthony Weiner, the disgraced, was he a senator? Senator Weiner?
Yeah.
Congressman,
yeah.
New York City Congressman.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
And it's gotten a particular attention this season because there are claims that they cut out kind of unflattering things about Hillary Clinton in the film because Weiner's wife and Hillary Clinton are very close.
Uma is her aide, or top aide, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and so it really follows him throughout that whole disgraced period, the second time that he was caught with the photos, sending photos. Anyway, that should be an interesting movie, too. What have you guys seen this week, old or new? Tony, let's past week or so.
Well, I watched two films on TV that really impressed me. One was Erin Brockovich, which I compared to The Big Short, and I think it's so much better than The Big Short, which I assume we're going to talk about later. And it has an important. I mean, it does raise issues, and it does it with. It's not a comedy, but it has humor. And Aaron Eckhart, I forgot how solid an actor he is.
Mm-hmm.
And Albert Finney is just a marvel. He's a hoot in it. And of course, Julia Roberts won the Oscar. By the way, question for you guys. Here's a question. Did Soderbergh win the Best Director award for Erin Brockovich?
No, he won for Traffic.
Very good. How often have we ever seen a director nominated for two films twice directed? I can't think of another example.
Nominated? No, there hasn't been. There hasn't been.
Coppola for Godfather 2 in Conversation, that didn't happen that year?
No, he got nominated for Best Picture as a producer, but not as a director.
Right.
For Conversation, it fell out of the directing category.
The other film that I saw was Jaws, and that damn thing holds up.
Oh yeah.
I had forgotten some shots that. We remember our memory in our attic is we have different sequences, and and he didn't get a nomination as Best Director. I think it won the Oscar for editing.
It won editing, sound, and score for John Williams.
Okay, good. And the one other that I've seen recently, and then I want to talk about a movie, and then I'll get off the thing. But Anatomy of a Murder, which is really, because we really have that, and obviously, I think it's Dean, what won the Oscar that year. No?
Was it 57 or 59?
It was
Ben-Hur, right?
Yes, it was Ben-Hur. It may have been 59.
Yeah, 59.
Yeah. It was Ben-Hur. So talk about two different kinds of films. Anatomy of a Murder, which is a wonderful film of dialogue and character, and then this spectacular film. Now, at the movies, or on my screener, I saw the second film that I got the most affirmative feedback of a review since Boyhood. I mean, everybody was from Boyhood last year, and everybody wrote a favorable review about it, almost everybody. I didn't. I took the other side. And I got a whole bunch of letters thanking me and saying, boy, I'm glad somebody saw it from my point of view or didn't understand. The same thing happened with a review I just finished about Anomalisa. Which most people loved, and I didn't. And I got some people who had seen the Rotten Tomatoes and wrote to me. So that was a film that made me feel like a real critic.
What was it about Anomalisa that didn't connect for you? Because I loved it.
I know. When I wrote my review, the critic, probably the one I respect the most, is Ann Hornaday of the Washington Post, and she loved it too. But for me, it just didn't work on many. I just didn't believe it. I thought it was shtick. I thought it was a trick. Puppets having kungaling. I just did it to my phone. You know what I'm saying. I don't call it pointless. I'm not sure what it delivered. I know was it the sort of self-pitying quality to it that? Yeah, and I think I think that rubs people the wrong way. But then again, self-pitying people rub people the wrong way. That doesn't mean that they don't exist. Oh, I didn't say it didn't exist, and I didn't say it's not a good film. Right. I said I didn't like it. Right.
So how does it compare to Synecdoche? I didn't get to see it, so I don't know anything about the movie.
Well, I said Tarantino just did The Hateful Eight, And with Synecdoche and Anomalisa, Kaufman has just done the Banal 2.
Okay, so Dean, what is your praise for it based upon?
Well, I mean, okay, first of all, on the visual level, I found it fascinating. It was an experience, that aspect of it. But for me, I don't really feel like we get to see many characters like the lead in Anomalisa, and particularly we don't get to see. Well, I mean, I wouldn't want every movie to have this kind of character, and I like it that the movie begins with the character one way and he stays the same. He doesn't really change. So I like that aspect of it, too. I don't think enough movies do that. I think movies are too much about change.
Let me ask you, what was your reaction to Kaufman having the father bring home a Japanese sex doll with sperm in it? I mean,
this sounds like something I wrote a long time ago. Never mind. But
I think that he's completely disconnected from reality. I mean, he's obviously got a mental problem because he hears every voice that he hears is the exact same voice except for Anomalisa's. Even his own son and wife have the same voice.
Tommy Newman did all the voices.
It's obviously a person that's far around the bend in terms of his depression and his ability to process the world, really.
Maybe I'm a son of the 1970s when alienation was real alienation, and the 21st century alienation.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that there is. I think that's a good way to put it, and I don't know. I really responded to it. Again, I don't want every movie to be like this, but I did enjoy this. And by the way, it does have a life-affirming quality to it because of the Lisa character, the Jason Lee character, who really is kind of shaken out of her kind of sleepiness by.
Would you date her, Dean? Dean, would you date her?
You know what? She seemed all right to me.
All right, okay.
She's damaged.
Wait, the puppet? You would date a puppet? Wait a second.
Yeah. I mean, I found that scene where she sings the Cyndi Lauper song to be completely mesmerizing and emotionally effective. And
I think that's
the
best of her in the film.
I would actually date her.
Okay, now that we know who Dean would date, let me run through just a couple of titles that I saw in the past week. By the way, we actually talked not so long ago about Anatomy of Murder because I checked that one out again, and I was very taken by hearing Jimmy Stewart talk about spermicides and things like that. I mean, that's not something I ever expected coming out of his mouth.
That stuff was very shocking back then.
It was shocking to me when I watched it last year. And then Erin Brockovich, she's in the headlines again because of the whole Flint, Michigan thing going on.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I watched last week. I rewatched some classics and watched some for the first time. Night of the Hunter I rewatched, which has always been a favorite movie of mine, and it struck me particularly how the movie is a child's nightmare, and how children are both repelled and drawn to what scares them. And the way it's visualized, everything about it is told in that way. So I watched it with a friend of mine, my best friend. I convinced him to watch it with me, and he was laughing at a couple of places because there's a scene where Mitchum's chasing after them up the stairs, and his hands are stretched out like Frankenstein, and it's a very obvious kind of spooky thing. And I'm like, but that's why it's seen through a child's eyes in a way. You would envision Robert Mitchum as that Frankenstein going after you if you were a child and someone was trying to kill you.
Yeah.
And the whole thing when they're on the river and you see the frogs and the different creatures in the woods around them, and there's this very, very specific point of view there of what would captivate a child in that environment. It's just a beautiful, brilliant movie that didn't do anything when it came out.
The screenplay was done by perhaps the greatest film critic that there ever was.
That's right.
James A.G. adapted the novel by Davis Grubb, and if I'm right, Charles Lawton's only film direction.
Yeah.
The only time he directed the film.
Yes. What a loss!
It really was.
What a loss. What a loss, though, that didn't do well. I mean, that was not, received as well when it came out. Because if that's the first thing he directed, I mean, my God. Stunning. I mean,
it's like if Orson Welles had stopped at Citizen Kane, and in many ways he did. But I mean, he made other movies that were compromised in one way or another by people outside of himself. But it was that stunning a debut, I think. A Night of the Hunter was. Grandma. Yes. I watched Grandma, the Lily Tomlin movie.
I watched that this week as well. I hated it.
You hated it.
I really found I just found it so phony and irritating and
my God. Really?
See, now that's a character that I had problems with hanging out with. Yeah, I just found her to be completely irritating in it, and I hated that movie.
How about the one scene, one of the greatest scenes I thought of the movies last year was between her, Tomlin, and Sam Elliott.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was just one scene, but
I love Sam Elliott.
Two heavyweights going together. And by the way, that car, that old broken down car in the garage, was Lily Tomlin's own car. It was her
really?
Car.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, so there were.
I liked it. I liked it a lot. I thought at 78 minutes. It was tight, and yet it felt very loose. And I'm describing the movie now. And I thought it had such a. It definitely had. And it was a movie with an attitude because the lead character had an attitude, but it was an attitude based upon many years of being hurt and wounded, and I totally empathized with that character. And at the same time, I thought because of that, it had a terrific humanity to it that I was really taken by. I think what's his Paul Weitz. I think like the movie that you love about a boy, Tony. I think he's good at finding the humanity in people that on the outside look totally self-centered.
Right.
And I think he did that here.
This shows between me and myself and Dean, it shows two critics coming at two different films from two various points of view, and they both can be valid.
Right.
And it just brings how you participate and how you see the film, what works for you. People think that somehow film criticism is objective. Some of the greatest is, of course, subjective, that you bring your own spirit and your own hopes, and you say, did it deliver on what it supposed it was delivering, and was it delivering what I wanted it to be at all?
Right.
So that in this program we've had two critics giving opposite points on two films, and I think both would have support.
Right.
Yeah.
The scene between Tomlin and Elliott, for me, seals the movie for me because that whole sequence goes a completely different way than I thought it was going to go.
Yeah.
I had an inkling though once it goes there, but Sam Elliott just delivers. His reaction is just you never forget that. It haunts the rest of the movie.
He had a great year last year between this and I'll See You in My Dreams. He really made the very most of supporting roles.
Right.
So he needs some kind of special recognition for that. I also watched, for the first time, Reflections in a Golden Eye.
Oh wow!
Oh my God!
Oh wow!
Wow!
Oh wow!
a very
what a
odd
crazy movie that is.
Yeah, and actually one of John Huston's favorites among his own. But I think directors, when you ask them what their favorite movie was, they'll always speak about the most abused child in their resume. And I think Reflections in a Golden Eye represented, one of those for him. It's Brando, Elizabeth Taylor, Robert Forster, and I think his debut role.
It was supposed to make him a big star, that role, I thought.
Brian Keith,
really
But one of the interesting things for me, Jamie, is all the films that you're saying come from novels. That's a Carson McCullers novel, right? Reflections in the Golden Eye? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. And so here we have language still alive, and language that is important, really a character in the films that you've mentioned.
Yeah. And very provocative, particularly for its time. I mean, it went to places that I didn't think it would go. First of all, Elizabeth Taylor, because I also watched Butterfield 8. I mean, Elizabeth Taylor's such a gorgeous woman and such a talented, great actress.
And Butterfield 8 was written by John O'Hara. Well, you're on a literary streak here.
Yeah. And she wasn't afraid to take a role wherever it needed to go. And she did some brave things in Reflection of the Golden Eye. I think Marlon Brando was a third choice for that part, and he only took it because somebody dropped out, and then Montgomery Clift backed out. Montgomery Clift was the first choice for that role. To Catch a Thief, I watched that, which is just a great Hitchcock, and Cary Grant at his most charming, ebullient. Hearts and Minds, the Vietnam documentary.
Okay, I haven't seen that in ages.
I haven't seen that in ages.
And what was your contemporary reaction to it?
It was a fascinating movie because it's actually filmed in I think he underwent that. He started filming that in 1972. And so you got from the veterans, from the Vietnamese, from the people that headed up the war, Westmoreland particularly, you got a very immediate reaction in the aftermath of the war. And particularly Westmoreland, his insights were particularly insensitive. And I think that the movie hit a lot of controversy because it was seen as very pro-Vietnamese, because they really spend a lot of time showing the wounds that it inflicted upon that country and those people that their only crime was living in their home, living in that country. So, but it won Best Documentary that year.
Also very controversial. I mean, Bert Schneider got up there, the producer got up there and made some comments that when he was accepting the award that rankled the host that year was Bob Hope. So you know what side he's on, Bob Hope.
And then they had Frank Sinatra come out and read a statement. Like during that broadcast, the producers were scribbling down this message. They had Frank Sinatra come out and read it, saying that, the opinions expressed during these acceptance speeches have nothing to do with our own thoughts and views of the Academy and blah, 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 and they wanted to distance themselves from. And then I watched Alice, Sweet Alice, which is, you guys ever seen that? A schlock horror movie back in the 70s?
Brooke Shields?
Yes.
I remember
her
that.
debut.
It's also called Communion. I think,
It is worth seeing.
Yes, I've seen it. It's been a long time.
I think it's the closest an American movie came to the Italian horror films, with the vivid colors and the very meticulously staged murder scenes. It was. In some ways, it's top of the line schlock. I'll just say that.
Yes,
really, really polished schlock.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, Dean, what have you seen?
Well, I just watched. I've been watching a lot of stuff this week. I just got finished watching Serpico yesterday. By the way, sometimes I get in the mood. I say I want to see like a gritty Sidney Lumet New York movie or whatever. So I put on Serpico. And then immediately whenever I rewatch Serpico, the first hour, I'm like, you know what, it's okay, but I really want to see like a police procedural sort of movie. And it gets into his family life and his girlfriends. He has one girlfriend and he drops her and gets another girlfriend and all this kind of stuff, which gets confusing. And then it's only an hour into the movie where the real drama begins with him dealing with taking money on the sly from the cops. He won't take the money, and everybody gets angry at him and so forth. And always in the first hour, I'm like, geez, I should have put in Prince of the City instead because that's a much better movie. But that said, I still love Serpico for Al Pacino, of course, who's great in it. And so, there's that. I watched, for the first time, these are movies that I watched for the first time, these next four. Hondo, the 3D, I didn't watch it in 3D, but it was a Western that was done in 3D back in the early 50s, directed by John Farrow, who was Mia Farrow's father, with John Wayne as a Indian-killing cowboy who runs across the ranch run by Geraldine Page. She was nominated for an Oscar. It's her debut role, nominated for supporting actress, even though it was a lead performance, really. And he ends up falling in love with Geraldine Page, but then leaving because she's married and so forth. So anyway, it was kind of a little too much like Shane for me in some ways, but I still found it kind of entertaining. And it's very short, and you can tell that it's done in 3D because there's shots of Indians shoving the arrows into the camera and so forth.
Right. Is that the same John Farrow who did His Kind of Woman and Macau, those Robert Mitchum movies? Is that the same?
Yeah, he's a director that I really don't really know a lot about, really.
Okay.
But so I can't that factors into the top of my head. But I mean, he was kind of a workmanlike director.
Right.
In the 50s
No,
and 40s.
I think there's all these the ones that Mitchum and who is it? Jane Russell did together, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think that's him. Okay.
I watched The Last Mogul, which I think you guys watched, last year about the documentary about Lew Wasserman, and that was very illuminating. I really had no idea. I had no idea that Wasserman was that powerful and that influential a figure in movies. I knew that he had been a leading executive for many years. And somebody that people trusted and respected, but it really feels like he kind of almost created he definitely created the idea of the TV movie and so forth. I mean, that was something that he totally spearheaded, and just everything that he had to do with, creating the rating system, and I was blown away by this movie in some ways, because I was like, wow, this movie really taught me something about film history. So I have to recommend The Last Mogul to people if you haven't.
And I mean, the end of his career is pretty much marked by a kind of a nurturing of Spielberg, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. Yes, I mean, everything that was connected to Universal back in the 60s and 70s, and even now on into the 80s. I mean,
who
even
played
things
him in
like,
the Hitchcock movie? Was he portrayed in the Hitchcock movie? Do you remember?
I can't
remember if I think he is actually. I think he is. Yeah, I mean, he had a great relationship with Hitchcock. I mean, he was just all over the place. It was a really, really fascinating movie.
Whoever played him in the Hitchcock movie, it had to be an actor that had a strong enough bone structure to hold those big glasses that Lew Wasserman wore.
Yeah, his glasses are famous. I watched Jean Renoir's Diary of a Chambermaid for the first time, which I'd never seen. I've seen the Bresson Diary of a Chambermaid, which is a better movie. But this was an interesting, Hollywood film with Paulette Goddard as a sort of a chambermaid that wants to break out and wants to marry somebody who's rich, and so the whole movie is really her trying to decide between marrying a rich guy or a poor guy, or there's Burgess Meredith in it, who they were married, Burgess Meredith and Paulette Goddard at the time, and Burgess Meredith actually acts as producer, screenwriter, and has a supporting role as one of the as the crazy next door neighbor that she considers marrying for just his money alone, and it was very good, very strange though, very odd changes between tone, like comedic, and then it's kind of almost like a noir movie, and then it's kind of scary and weird, and I don't know, very odd changes of tone, but very entertaining. And finally, I won't say finally, because I've got one more after this, but Almost There, the documentary. It's a relatively new documentary. Let's see when it is.
2014.
2014. About an elderly artist that the documentarians run across at a street fair, and they decide to film him for a little while, and then they get interested in his actual personal life, and when they go and visit his quote-unquote studio, they find that he's living in basically squalor in his family home that's just basically falling down around him, and he's in the basement, and it's pretty. I mean, it rivals the documentary Brothers Keeper, if you've ever seen that, for
Oh, really? Okay.
A pure peer into absolute squalor and you can't believe someone's living like this. So the filmmakers try and help him out to as much as they can to help him out with art supplies, and he's kind of an outsider artist, kind of a folk artist, and then they they're deep into this documentary, and then they discover something about his past that really throws the documentary into another realm. Until that happened, I wasn't sure if I liked the movie or not. I thought, well, where's this going or whatever. And once once the twist comes in the middle of it, it's really, really something. It really called into my mind questions about artists' motivations and what is forgivable and do we, as consumers of art, do we have to make judgments on the artist's past? If the artist has done something in the past that's of questionable intent or whatever.
Well, he was pretty steadfast in not wanting that revealed in the movie. So when the filmmakers told him, we have to deal with it, he ended up being. In the end, I think he was pleased to tell his side of the story. Our interview with the director of that film posted last week, Aaron Wickenden, is one of the co-directors, who actually is also the editor of movies like Best of Enemies, which I thought was the best documentary last year.
Yeah.
And Finding Vivian Maier, which I thought was the best documentary of the year before. But this was the first movie he directed. He spent 8 years.
Very good.
He spent 8 years making it. And so what was interesting was, how you interview filmmakers, and filmmakers are usually asked, how did this project change you, or how do you feel like you evolved from this project? When you spend 8 years making a single movie, I asked him, can you sense your evolution in that single movie, like watching it? And he said, yes. He said, just from a technical level, when we started, we had no idea what we were doing. We didn't have the right sound equipment. Our sound was terrible. We had the wrong lens. We were doing everything wrong, and a lot of that stuff's in the movie. So you can actually trace my evolution as a filmmaker in that single film, just by the nature of it taking 8 years. I thought that was interesting.
I thought it hung together quite well. I mean, like I didn't notice any really major technical problems with it or anything like that. So, but it's quite good. So check that out. It's called Almost There. And then finally, the greatest thing that I came across, I just came across this morning. It was a big shock to me. Apparently, Louis C.K. has been quite busy in his time off from doing the TV show, and he has dropped. I think he just dropped it like a couple of days ago, with no notice, no hype, no anything. He put it out on his website. There's a beginning of a new web series that he's created called Horace and Pete.
Oh, okay.
The first episode is 67 minutes long, and it plays like kind of an off-Broadway play set at a bar called Horace and Pete's, where Louis C.K. and Steve Buscemi are the owners of the bar. They've taken it over from Alan Alda, who still acts as a kind of as the bartender, even though he doesn't really own the bar anymore. And I was completely floored by this. Written and directed by Louis C.K. It's available on his website for $5. And,
okay.
And there's going to be more episodes, but I was completely stunned by the quality of this. I just felt like it was like watching a really great Broadway play, and I should mention that A.D. Bryant, who's in I guess part of the SNL cast. I really don't watch SNL anymore, so when she comes on as Louis C.K.'s overweight daughter, the movie, the piece really just took off for me. I really, empathized with that character quite a bit, and I thought that she was superb in it. But also, I should mention that in addition to the cast I've already mentioned, there's Edie Falco comes in the latter half as Louis C.K.'s sister, who's contesting the ownership of the bar. She wants to get the bar back and dissolve it. And also, all throughout the piece, sitting at the bar was this woman that I couldn't recognize. And it turns out it's Jessica Lange. Good
for her.
Awesome. Yeah. I was like, whoa, that's Jessica Lange. I couldn't believe it. So if I haven't sold you on this already, I mean, you got to watch it. And, again, it's the first of, I think there's going to be 5 episodes.
All right.
So Horace and Pete is absolutely the best thing.
Let me just say, Jessica Lange, my favorite actress. Jerry? What
Speaking of True Story, I watched True Story on HBO last night.
Oh, what a terrible movie that is.
Oh, my God. Can someone please... All right, so I kept waiting for Jonah Hill to break the fourth wall throughout the movie and was really disappointed by that, or kept saying, wait, I'm in the wrong movie. I got to say, I guess I was expecting something more like the Mean season, and I just got the Dull season.
Wow. The Mean season. I haven't heard anybody reference that ever.
No. But just the same kind of, you got the reporter, you got everything. Look, I like Jonah Hill. I like, in Moneyball and The Wolf of Wall Street. I know he's making... I think James Franco looked like he was just wandering through this movie. I never got the feeling that he did the heinous acts that he did. He just looked like he was sleepwalking through the movie. They both did, to be honest with you.
It's a bad movie. It's a bad movie. Can I just tell you, I have a story about The Mean season. The Mean season is 1983, Kurt Russell, Mariel Hemingway movie.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Took place in Miami Beach or something, a kind of murder newspaper kind of movie. I remember when I was 13, 14, I went to a modeling agency, and I was going to sign with this modeling agency. And this guy that ran the modeling agency was the slimiest person. And he was giving me a whole spiel about how you make it in the business. And he had one major credit. He was an extra in the Mean season, and he had a framed photo of him standing by Kurt Russell carrying a camera, because I guess he played a crew member of the news organization.
Right. And, wow.
So
Jamie, was this a modeling agency for hands?
No, I was an attractive kid, but it was also for acting, and they came through with very little opportunities for acting. But I was 13, 14. I didn't know anything. But anyway, so that's what I think.
Well, The Mean Season is actually kind of a halfway decent movie, with particularly because of Richard Jordan, who's a really great villain in it.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I mean, that's a solid. That's kind of like a taco movie. A good movie comes on.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good movie. No, but going back to this, Felicity Jones is in this. I mean, it's a waste of an interesting cast. Because I got to be honest, you just don't care. I mean, there's nothing in the movie that makes you really want to say, why did he do it? What's going on? Why is he impersonating? The Jonah Hill character in this. Why is he doing? I mean, there's none of this ever really explained.
Why would anyone impersonate Jonah Hill? I mean, it's essential questions that come up with this.
I mean, so it's just not. It's very uninvolved, and this got a major theatrical release, a wide release last year, and I think it played for a week, and that was it. I finally saw 45 Years on Friday night. And it's very well done. I like it. It is short and to the point. It doesn't drag.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a wasted moment in the movie. I think the two of them are just incredible together. And I think that last shot of her, just
unbelievable.
It's a hunting shot. But I definitely, I wouldn't have minded. I would love to have seen him nominated. I think he's every bit as good as she is.
I agree.
Yeah. And I thought the backstory, what's causing all this, was fascinating. And I think the scene where she goes in the attic looking at the slides is just so well done. Just really top-notch acting on her part. Just the look on her face and everything. She deserves. Still leaning towards her, but I know after the comments she made or whatever that I'm sure her star has fallen in that regard. But I think I like everyone who's nominated, but
we should probably mention her name.
Charlotte
Rampling. I'll hook something on here. Did you guys see the swimming pool? She was excellent.
Oh yeah.
She was excellent in that.
And Under the Sand. Under the Sand, she was good, and one of her. I mean, I still think one of her. I mean, The Night Porter is just one of those great iconic roles. That movie is just in itself just incredible. But this was she every couple of years she comes out with a really first-rate performance. I mean, she's a really I love an underrated actress. Personally.
I love seeing Tom Courtenay again too, because he doesn't do enough movies. I mean, when he does a film, it's an event in some ways.
Oh yeah.
You're right that he's just as good as she is.
I mean, we got the Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner, Billy Liar, Dr. Zhivago, Night of the Generals, and the last thing I remember seeing him in was Last Orders. I think. That's the last.
And The Dresser. Don't forget The Dresser.
The Dresser, yes. The Dresser is from. Well, that's the early '80s, right?
Yes.
That's with Albert Finney, right?
Right.
But you have to remember that Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner, the angry British youngster and running that race and then quitting it and screwing the establishment, and that wiry potency of him, and then he grew old.
Yeah, well,
he grew old.
I'm not looking forward to it, Tony. I'm not looking forward to it. I'll say that right now. You don't have to rub it in. You don't have to rub it in, man.
No. That was masochism. It wasn't sadism.
Okay, you brought up Charlotte Rampling's Oscar chances. So, Tony, I know you keep tabs on this in terms of the odds-on favorites, the word on the street, so to speak, for the Oscars. And
no, the word on the street is nonsense. It's got the word behind the guys that lay the lines offshore. That's the real ones. And
so the word on that street that you're getting your information from, what are they saying? Now, is The Big Short favored now that it won the PGA, or what's happening?
It started, what started, and you remember last year when I talked to you about the Oscars, that Boyhood was, you couldn't bet it was such a favorite. It was an extreme favorite to win Best Picture. And then, so I put $10 down offshore on Birdman, okay? And Birdman won, and it had become the favorite, and it paid me $180 for 10. Boyhood, which was the tremendous favorite, had fallen, and we've seen the same thing here. Revenant was opened as the favorite. Then, as you said, the Producers Award, which is the film that has won the Producers Award, has won the Best Picture, I think, the last 8 years. It may be different this year. I think Spotlight and Big Short are head and head. Right now, they're both about 6-5. They're kind of co-favorites. So if you go with history, you pick The Big Short. If you go with something else, my hope, I guess, you go with Spotlight.
What are your thoughts on The Big Short as a movie, Tony? Because I know you're itching to talk about it.
Well, the Big Short, to me, it's very manipulative. It's a film that tries to have it both ways. The fact that they promoted it and the Golden Globes put it in the category of a comedy, it's not a comedy.
It's not. Why is it called a comedy? It is not funny. There's nothing funny in it.
I think because they want to soften it, and it is a softer picture. It's very manipulative. It reminds me of a Hillary campaign. that it's manipulative, it's safe, it's going to all the high points. In 5 years, what are we going to think about this film? We're going to remember it as, what's the scene? Oh yeah, Margot Robbie in the bubble bath with a glass of champagne. It's about an extremely important topic, and it makes these exploiters anti-heroes, and it's a lot of it is faked. The guy, first of all, they don't change Michael Burry, which is the Christian Bale character. They use his actual name. 6 of the others, they changed their names. 5 of the others, they didn't change their names. They changed. Eisner was on the set, telling McKay some things to do. Because he had suffered the loss of a son, the child was killed and was smothered in an accident. They made it, his brother committed suicide. Well, they start to manipulate. They start to say, this is too strong. This character doesn't want this said about him. And to me, it may be entertaining, but it's not. It's so wary of the truth, and it doesn't end with a punch. It ends with a kind of chuckle a bit and leave the theater and be a little provoked, but just a little. Not that you'll do anything. So
I agree with that.
Go ahead.
I agree. I mean, I put this on my top 10. Just because I thought it was better done than, first of all, I think we were surprised that Adam McKay, would be the last person I would pick to make this movie. But now
I wish you were.
But here's the thing. What you just described to me is every PR campaign I've ever worked on. My first job out of college was in a PR firm, and you just described everything, the way you were telling what they had to do, telling people. You can changing a news story. You would always change news stories. Well, you can include that. You can include that. You can include this. You can't include that. And that's what you sound like you're describing. So that's very interesting, Tony. I did not know that about the movie. I read the book a long time ago. And I thought the movie was in the vein of what you could call, if there is such a genre, finance porn. It's like a lesser version of Wolf of Wall Street and American Hustle. It's in that kind of vibe.
Dean, I'm talking to Dean, right?
Jerry.
Yeah.
It was
Jerry.
Jerry. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It was soft porn. It wasn't.
Right.
It wasn't the real thing. It
it
wasn't
was
explicit. It didn't have soft porn. If soft porn does it for the audience, so be it. But I thought that picture had such an opportunity, and you see this glib kind of safe play the game of promotion, making the film. To me, if they had made the film all about the money, the Murray character, Michael Burry, the Christian Bale, it would have been a much better film. But the rest of it was like the butcher had his thumb on the scales of justice, and I just there's something. See, a film like that, if it replaces what should be said about the issues, and it does make these exploiters into acceptable anti-heroes, and there really isn't any clue that there's. This is a very superficial view of it, very shallow view of it, and
I don't think that they really, like I don't think that they really even plumb the entire possibilities of the story in terms of they didn't really show like what effect their actions were actually having on the world.
Let me ask you a question about the tone that you just described, because I think you're saying something that I said about Wall Street when it came out. And here's the thing: you're basically saying that the people are, if people watch the movie and like it, it's not a popular movie, box office wise. It is not something that they were running out to go see. But unlike Wall Street, but it seems to me what you're saying is that people of my generation walked away with everyone wanted to become like Gordon Gekko after watching Wall Street. I think what I'm gathering, Tony, is that you could say that the people who do go see this movie will not feel not being aware of the actions, the consequences. Hey, I want to be like these guys.
No, exactly. It gives a glib portrait of them, and believe me, I did not want to be like Gordon Gekko.
No, I realize that, but
in any way.
But there were a lot of people who walked away with that and said, "We want to be like Gordon Gekko."
They're the same people that run Wall Street today.
Yeah.
And Oliver Stone has made it clear that, look, Wall Street had the exact opposite effect that I wanted it to have.
Yeah.
People just saw nobody plays slimy like Michael Douglas. They just saw his performance of that.
Yeah.
I just watched A Perfect Murder again the other night, the remake of Dial M for Murder, for better or worse. But my God, I mean, he's perfect in those parts, those roles. He's just great. But
right.
Can you imagine a director with integrity like Kubrick or Scorsese or Lynch or whoever it may be, doing what McKay did? That it's almost you were talking about being in promotion. It has that odor of promotion for me. I mean, I just don't think the issue of greed and devastation comes down to Margot Robbie in a.
I think the problem that a lot of people, besides what you're talking about, we are still, how shall I say this, living in the aftermath of it. For a lot of people never got to recover. I mean, there is no recovery after this financial crisis. After this one, it's still going on for a lot of people. So I also think that's something to take into account.
Well, I get the feeling if you said, McKay, you had to drop this or you had to change this, or what would be his bottom line? Where would he say, "Oh, I won't do that"? I mean, I don't get what I don't get from this film is that it was made by a man of principle, and that bothers me.
Well, I think I see what you're saying, and I did not know about these other things changed. But are you trying to tell me that the Campaign is maybe the more principled film? The Campaign, or even the second Anchorman, maybe the more principled film then?
No, I said this is an unprincipled man making movies. So.
Okay, I'm going to give you guys a choice for our list to end tonight's show, and then I'll tell you the topic. You can go with the list that is on pastemagazine.com, or the list that is on Telegraph, the Telegraph publication in the UK. It's the same topic.
Oh. Let's go with the Telegraph.
Telegraph.
Okay, good choice. Here, according to the Telegraph, are the 10 greatest Alfred Hitchcock films.
Okay.
You ready?
Oh, shit.
It's not a challenge or anything, Jerry. It's okay.
I know, but this will cause a lot of debate. I love it.
But the thing is,
right.
of course, today's choices don't have to be tomorrow's choices. Hitchcock was so we can change our mind the next day.
I hope so.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
And all of these are great films, but there's always discussions of which one means more to us or which one we think deserves higher ranking, that whole thing. They're number 10 from 1927, The Lodger.
Oh,
where a lot of Hitchcock's predominant themes first kind of reared their head. The Wrong Man.
You know, I have to admit, I've never seen it. I have never seen that. There's a lot of those early Hitchcocks I still haven't watched. I've watched
one
the
of his
remake.
Silence.
Can we? Did you say we could pick another list? I mean, that's important because it's Hitchcock. I don't think it's one of his 10 most important.
Yeah. Number 9, and at the end of this list, we can talk about what we think is missing from the top 10.
Oh, yeah,
number
sure.
9.
Okay.
The Lady Vanishes, 1938.
Okay. Are you just going to go through the list and
sure,
well, we can react to these films. I think you can make a case for The Lady Vanishes. It's right near the 10. I can leave it out or I can include it. I have no problems with The Lady Vanishes being on his list.
I prefer 39 Steps. I imagine that's going to be on the top 10.
Well, we could put both of them on the list, you know.
Yeah.
Well, hey,
yeah, I
39 Steps is number 8.
Okay.
Right.
There you go.
They're obviously going from oldest to new, or are they doing that? Okay. Well, 39 Steps is great. I mean, that's probably the great movie of that year, and for me, like the kind of, really, Lady Vanishes is really the sort of the beginning of Hitchcock for me personally. Mm-hmm. But I love 39 Steps. It's still incredibly exciting.
Well, this list actually ranks all 52 of his feature films, and so and I looked at a couple of lists that rank them all, and they all had one thing in common. They all had one thing in common. In last place on Hitchcock's resume, they had the same film. What do you think that film was? The least favorite.
Topaz?
Jamaica Inn?
Topaz. Topaz is it. Yep.
Really? Topaz? Okay, wow. All right.
Oh,
Tony Macklin said that. Tony Macklin said that.
Number 6 is Sabotage from 1936.
How about number 7?
Oh, yeah, she skipped 7.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Number 7 is North by Northwest.
Did he make a film called So Sorry?
North by Northwest. No, yeah, that was Topaz. North by Northwest is number 7.
Wow, that's I guess that feels low, but I mean that's to me
I'd agree. I put it in my top 5. It in my top 5.
Yeah, I mean North by Northwest is incredible. I mean,
Sabotage, number 6. Number 5.
That's odd, by the way. Sabotage at number 6. That just totally floors me. I don't agree with that.
Number 5
okay.
is Strangers on a Train.
Absolutely.
Oh,
I mean, it deserves to be in the top 10. I would probably put that like in 8 or 9 or something like that.
I'd have it in my 5, I think, because there's dualities and do you guys remember what his cameo was in Strangers on the Train?
No, I don't. What's his cameo?
It's about two figures, the doppelganger, and he gets on the bus carrying the double bass.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's
which is very clever.
Yeah, that's again another extremely exciting movie. Was maybe one of the great. I'd say one of the top 5 performances in any Hitchcock movie, which is Robert Walker.
It's a great
Bruno.
movie.
He's
awesome.
He's incredible in it, and great photography, by the way. Like one of the best photographed Hitchcock movies as well.
The top 3 or 4 Hitchcock movies on all of these lists are usually the same titles. They're just placed differently. Number 4 on this list is Rear Window. Yeah,
that still is my favorite Hitchcock movie, and that would definitely be my number 1. Because I'll never forget being in the theater watching that for the first time in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
Because they did the re-release in the 80s. For years it wasn't. It was put in the Universal vaults, and people didn't get a chance to see it. But watching that for the first time, I just remember feeling that immense sense of, and it was in a huge theater, that immense sense of claustrophobia, and also. Like I love those scenes where he's kind of drifting in and out of sleep, and he sees little bits going on in the apartment across the street, but he kind of falls asleep, and the movie's fading in and out, and you're just kind of feeling kind of sleepy along with him, and
a Hitchcock film made you sleepy, huh?
Well, I mean, for that, I think that was, obviously, I think intentional. I think it just it kind of put you in this sort of a dreamy kind of state.
Well, it did have the theme of voyeurism, but I think compared to some of the others, like North by Northwest or several of them, it doesn't have as many layers. It doesn't have as many levels. It's a very compelling experience, but I don't see when we take it apart or when we go through it and see the philosophies and the different psychologies and the different themes, it's not as thematically rich as some of the other films. I put
that may be true, but as a movie about watching and looking at things, that's what I love about it. Right. And so
number 3 is Notorious.
Oh, I mean, that's one of my all-time favorites. Definitely would be in my top 5. I mean, I love Notorious. Just love that.
Yeah, I'm a little cooler.
He's got good taste.
I'm cooler on Notorious than I like it. And I think the two leads. That's Ingrid Bergman and Cary Grant, right?
Yeah.
I think their relationship in it, particularly Ingrid. I think Ingrid Bergman's amazing in it. I think she's really great in it, and a very strong female character for the time.
Absolutely.
Is there a stronger, better film about love than Notorious?
Yeah. I agree. I think that's its prime. That's its prime feature. I don't think that it's as exciting as some of the other Hitchcock movies from that period, but I guess I can understand it being in the top 10, but not at number 3.
Number 2 is Vertigo on this list.
Of course.
Well, they disagree with Sight and Sound. Sight and Sound, in its decadal, they have a rating from critics and filmmakers around the world. This year, or in 2012, Citizen Kane was replaced after decades of being in first place by Vertigo, which I think will last until 2022, when I think it will be replaced by 2001. But
I think 2001 will be at the top of the list next time too. I agree. I love Vertigo. Vertigo is such a big screen experience to me. Like I'll never forget going to the Ziegfeld to see it, which the Ziegfeld, by the way, in New York just closed this week. It was the last single screen theater in New York City. And the site of many premieres, and I remember seeing Vertigo there and being when they restored it and being blown away by the colors in it and again that sort of dreamy quality that is probably most to the fore in this particular Hitchcock film than almost any other.
One of my most interesting experiences with that is it does not work nearly as well with young audiences as it does with more mature people, more experienced people. I remember when I showed it in class, they said, "Well, why didn't he jump off too?" I mean, they just didn't get the sense of loss or the sense of failure and what were frenzy and what were Vertigo. His nihilistic film. I think he's close to nihilism or nihilism.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the most oppressive and the one filled with the most. It feels like the most deeply felt of Hitchcock's.
It's also Jamie. It's also a spiritual film. It's the loss of spirituality, or the failure of spirituality, which was telling for Hitchcock.
Mm. So their number one should be obvious then. At the time.
Psycho.
Yes, Psycho, I would think, unless I'm missing something.
Yeah.
No, you're not missing anything.
Now, Psycho, Tony, do you feel like Psycho is one of those movies that has, a multitude of layers like you?
Oh, absolutely. The symbol of the eyes, her open eyes when she's dead, the eyes of the bird, there's a whole symbolic thing, and then there's there's fate and his wonderful technique of manipulating the audience in a good way. We want that car to sink in the bog. We're rooting for the car to sink. I don't know whether we're rooting for him to get to put his fingers through the vent and recover the lighter in Strangers on a Train, but Hitchcock was so effective and so brilliant at manipulating us and involving us, and so it does have, I think, layer upon layer upon layer.
Mm-hmm. Again, another one of his most beautiful movies. I think in terms of just the aesthetics, the art direction, the photography, the editing, the music. Everything just works together perfectly, and again, maybe the number one greatest performance in a Hitchcock movie.
I think so.
Anthony Perkins, and Janet Leigh is also quite great in it as well, and I like Vera Miles too. So I mean, I have no problem
in terms of
like
layers. I mean, you could just focus on Perkins' performance in the movie,
right?
As being a very layered one. But for Hitchcock, I mean, the film is, like you said, it's so beautifully rich in the cinematography of it. Which the first time I saw a really good transfer of it on Blu-ray, because I'd just known it from television, and I did watch a print of it one time at the movie theater. That wasn't a very good one. But the first time I saw a really gorgeous print of it, it was like a revelation how beautiful it was. But the tone of it is somewhat, I mean, sadistic and gleeful in that Hitchcock way, the way he plays an audience. But at the same time, I felt it was completely empathetic to the Perkins character. And I think it's interesting to consider how he might have used Perkins as a, I don't want to be controversial, but as a closeted homosexual.
Yeah, he's not closeted at all. Also, his name is Bates, Norman Bates, and of course that goes down to Master Bates.
Yeah, I mean, in 1960, Anthony Perkins was, I mean, to the end of his life, he never came out.
Right.
He died in the But people that knew him knew that of him, and I'm sure Hitchcock knew that too.
I mean,
it can be seen through that prism
not
as
to
well.
get too deep into this, but I mean, Perkins was basically, wasn't he a virgin until like his late 20s or something like that? I mean, or at least mid 20s. So I think that contributed to that idea that he was closeted homosexual.
Well, yeah, and I think if that's true, then that comes into play as well.
Yeah, it adds to the whole repression.
Right.
The whole idea of repression, psychological.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful movie.
It's great. It's unquestionably, it has to be in the top 5. Whether it's number 1 or not, it just has to be there. So now, what is the movies that you guys would throw?
Well, I have
the top
one.
10?
I've got the word hopeless and I've got the word angst. I don't have the word I want, but you get the idea where I'm going. That Vertigo was the most, whatever that is, whatever that sense of loss is. Mm-hmm. There's another film that I think is the most underrated Hitchcock film, Frenzy.
I
where
agree.
He had the mark of Cain on him at the end, and it was all about the Garden of Eden, as so is Northwest. It has Gethsemane, but the sense of hopelessness, the sense of desperation, the sense of kind of despair, and also talk about the symbols. Hitchcock was so symbolic that when they find the body, that there's the old traditional tie, and the Thames is now dirty. The Thames is not the pristine river that it once was. The whole culture, the whole society, humanity is now in the dire sense of betrayal and frustration and devastation. So Frenzy would be on my top 10 list.
I still think of Frenzy as one of his most personal movies. Like, I agree. I think I might put it in the top 10 as well. I think that it was the one, because of the time that it was made in, I think he felt free, probably freer than he had ever felt to really dramatize the act of murder with extreme. I don't know if realism is the correct word, but just kind of an unflinching look at it, and not just murder but rape as well. And I think he kind of reveled in that a little bit, maybe a little too much. but I like that kind of uncomfortable quality of it. But,
and he's still at the top of his style. You remember the tracking shot down the stairs and out the door, and then we hear the horrid scream of them of the woman finding the body. That's Hitchcock at his best.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, the two movies that I think have been left out of the conversation is Shadow of a Doubt from 1943, is a movie from the script by Thornton Wilder, with the great Joseph Cotton as Uncle Charlie, returning to his boyhood home. That's just nice and American, and just as American as apple pie. And then he brings in this kind of this ill wind of evil into the house, and I just love all the performances in it, like from Teresa Wright all the way to Patricia Collins, and that little girl that plays her sister. It's just she's great in it. She's just so funny. It's just and it's also Hitchcock's favorite of his own movies, from what I've heard. And it's just radically entertaining, exciting, and just all across the board, top notch. But also The Wrong Man, which I think we discussed a little bit last week. But the mid-50s film that he did with Henry Fonda as a orchestra bassist who is falsely accused of being a serial thief and jailed for it, and then even after how it affects his entire family, including his wife, played by Vera Miles, who goes.
Can I do something unfair for you? Can I ask you an unfair question?
Sure.
Okay. What shots do you remember from that film, from The Wrong Man? What Hitchcock shots?
Oh, when I think of The Wrong Man, the first thing I think of is the shot of Henry Fonda being thrown in jail. And then the door closing on him, and all you see is his eyes through the slot in the door, and that's the first thing that comes into mind. I also always remember Hitchcock's own introduction of the movie, which happens obviously at the beginning of the film, where he comes out and he's kind of very far away from the camera and introducing the film as one of his most realistic pieces. I always think that's very interesting, and also finally just the that incredible scene where Vera Miles, who's deep in her onset of madness, clocks Henry Fonda, her husband, over the head with a hairbrush or something, or it's a mirror, right? It's a mirror, and the mirror shatters, and you see his shattered reflection in the mirror, and that I always recall. That's a stunning scene. But there are many stunning scenes in it, and I also think that it's also one of Hitchcock's most unusual looking movies. Like it feels quite different in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you very much.
That's all I got. Anybody got anything else for this week?
Yeah, there are three I was thinking that I would. Well, there's really one of those three, but I like Rope a lot. I like Spellbound a lot, but I would definitely put Lifeboat on there. I really love Lifeboat. That's a great film. And
yeah.
I might take out The Lodger and put that in there.
Yeah. I just love the idea of Lifeboat, of just like, well, let's just do a whole movie in a boat.
Yeah, I mean, but it's a really suspenseful, really on the edge of your seat kind of movie for that. I mean, it's really quite a movie.
I love Tallulah Bankhead in it, and
she's superb. Oh my God, she's so good.
And William Bendix, right? So he's great in it.
Yes, that's William Bendix. Yes.
And how does Hitchcock make his cameo appearance?
Oh God, I don't remember. You'll have to tell me.
He's in a newspaper ad. He's in a before or after weight loss or something ad, right?
I just watched Rope last night, actually. Ironically enough.
Wow.
The wink wink one shot movie is what it's most known for. But I just paid particular attention to Jimmy Stewart in that movie, and just how beautiful he is at just with his eyes, where you can watch him figuring out the crime, piecing it together just with his eyes, and that's a real fascination for me watching that movie, just watching him.
Yes.
But I wouldn't put that on my
You should do a program,
best.
Jamie, sometime on the films of Jimmy Stewart.
We should. That would be a good show.
That'd be good. And then I could pull out my. I don't remember the line about spermicide and Anatomy of a Murder, but I was imitating him talking about it on the show a couple of months ago. Anyway. Okay. Anything else from you, Tony? You're going to, if you'll be so kind, you're going to join us again for our Oscar pre-show, which we tape live in the hours preceding the ceremony.
I'd like to very much, but I'm sorry, Jamie, I can't promise being kind.
Okay. Well, as long as you're here.
If I'd be so kind, you said if I'd be so kind, I'm not. That's not my style, unfortunately.
And then we'll report on everything, our last minute thoughts on the Oscar ceremony, what to expect, and and as usual, Jerry will go through all the fashions of the evening. So it'll be a great.
That'd be great, show. And that'd be really awesome. And maybe I will know some of them by then. Maybe.
Yeah, you need to study up on your designers, my friend. That's all.
I'm going to study.
Okay, guys. Thank you so much.